This is Nifty Culture. I'm Pio, and this morning I have the pleasure of speaking with CJ, also known as Videogamefreak XBL. How's it going, CJ?
Very well. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Really happy. For context, you and I connected because on Monday, we were both speakers on what we think is the first time that Gary Vee hosted a Twitter Spaces that was dedicated to NFTs. So he just kind of did that. I don't know if it was scheduled, but you and me were both there to request to be speakers. He let us both up, and we were able to, have a conversation with Gary Vee, which was really cool. Like, how was that experience for you?
It was pretty awesome. So, I've followed Gary for a number of years. I've been plugged in with, a couple of his team members and stuff like that. Like, shout out Tyler, shout out Aaron. But I was really curious, kind of pick his brain, because I've followed his wallet address since probably March, and so I've known that he's had these CryptoPunks, which he hasn't really publicly talked about very much. If you follow him very closely, you would know that he had CryptoPunks maybe, but I don't think you would have known that he had 52 of them in a single wallet. And even in the CryptoPunks Discord, he gets a lot of flack, kind of as that, media guru kind of mogul status. And I don't think that, a bunch of people in there even knew that he was rolling as deep as he is. So it was, I kind of wanted to pick his brain around, if that was a strategic move, like that he intentionally didn't talk about it in order to not artificially pump his own bags kind of deal. And it was kind of cool to get his thoughts on that.
Yeah, that was definitely when I found out that he had over 50 CryptoPunks. I knew he had at least one really good one, because I don't know when it was, maybe 2 months ago, it did come out that he bought, I think it was a zombie punk, either a zombie or an alien punk, for 700 grand, right? Yeah. And so at that time, that was a big deal. And it also showed me Gary, number one, knows what's up, and number two, CryptoPunks is the Bitcoin of the NFT space. I was actually just talking to someone earlier before this, and they asked me what would you invest in NFTs? And I said to them, the only investment that I could ever tell someone is a good idea in NFTs, and obviously the never financial advice thing kind of applies to this, but the only investment to me actually is a CryptoPunk, because it's the Bitcoin of the space, in my opinion. And even in a crypto winter or a NFT winter, to me, the CryptoPunk is what's going to hold its value the best, and then what's going to rebound at the highest level. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
So I definitely think there are worthy investments in NFTs besides just CryptoPunks, but
could you recommend them to someone else though? Could you recommend them?
I've made a few recommendations, but yes, again, not financial advice. But I think CryptoPunks is the easiest and most notable that if there's any of them that are going to succeed, it is CryptoPunks, right? And you mentioned the zombie that Gary had acquired. The reason people found out that was his was because he actually purchased it with the VeeFriends wallet. So it was actually, yeah, so that was where some of that Ethereum went, was from VeeFriends to the acquisition of the zombie punk. But it's not impossible to go out there and find Gary's, wallet. I won't share his wallet address here, but knowing that he has 52 CryptoPunks in his wallet, if you know how, you can go and find that. And so it's kind of just been interesting to follow what projects he's invested in, and what he's got his finger on the pulse. I mean, he is in it.
For sure. And we talked about this. There was that recap spaces. That was when I knew it was kind of a big deal, is after the Gary Vee spaces that we were in, my head was still kind of spinning, because I was like, oh man, I just talked to Gary Vee directly. That's kind of wild. And then there's a recap spaces, and I was like, oh, well, I'm going to jump into that too. And I think it was that guy Lee that, I connected with also after the Gary Vee thing, that was saying, because I was bringing up that it seems like the NFT space is sort of the culmination of all of Gary's previous endeavors put into one, like the collectibles thing and, being able to kind of trade your way up the whole thing. And then Lee brought up a really good point, which was that he has the finger on the pulse of like the technology side, Web 2.0, things like that. So this really is the marriage of everything. And it just makes so much sense that he's just all over it and that he really, really gets it. And that his project not only has been massively successful, but also innovated and has set a standard for utility in NFT projects.
Very much agreed. No, and it's funny that you literally just like quoted my thesis as to why I needed. So I left behind my my day job in March to go all in on NFTs.
Congratulations, man! Amazing.
Thank you. But yeah, it was a leap of faith for sure. I was leaving a very established, well-paying job to go full-time on NFTs. At that point, was largely still had that bubble atmosphere to it. So, but for me, it was the coalescence and the intersection of all of my collective sort of passions, interests. I came from an operations and marketing background, project management and stuff like that. And, some high level video games and live streaming and stuff like that mixed in there. So coming from like tech and hospitality and training and education, and then video games and crypto and my interest in art and stuff like that. Like it was just, this is it. And once I wrapped my head around the technology, the smart contract, that was when I was like, yep, this is it. I'm in. Let's go.
Well, that's amazing, man. And I think that, we're seeing more and more people, have that same mentality. Like, I just want to go full time with this. I see it on Twitter left and right. I see it with people that I'm friendly with now in Discord and people that come on the show too. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about, and we kind of talked about Punks already, but I want to talk about Punks comic, which has been around for a little bit, but it really has exploded. And I guess like maybe the last 7 to 10 days, maybe you can correct me on that time estimate, but the floor is approaching 1 ETH, or maybe is already at 1 ETH, which is insane.
Past that now, yeah.
Insane, because like when I was looking at it like a month and a half ago, it was not there yet. So yeah, just talk to me about that project, how if you're involved in it and what your thoughts are.
So yeah, I'm somewhat involved a little tangentially. I'm on the community development side. I helped build out their Discord forum and stuff like that. I did some advising on some of the operations and logistics with the physical. But yeah, so we actually got a really cool shout out on Props and Drops episode 2 as well. So that was I listened to that this morning, and that was kind of a cool little head nod from Gary and Matt towards Punks Comics. But yeah, so essentially Beanie, G-Funk, and Sports Cheetah, who are the founders, acquired 16 CryptoPunks and hired Chris Wall, a Marvel DC comic book artist, to create original IP inspired by the CryptoPunks. The tokenization and the mechanics behind it are what really hooked me, because the 16 underlying CryptoPunks are going to be entered into a custom smart contract and tokenized so that owners of the founding Punks comic #1 will actually be able to redeem fractional ownership of those 16 CryptoPunks. There's a lot of deeper mechanics, staking, burning, the redemption of the physical, but yeah, at a very high level, that was what hooked me, was the fractionalization of the 16 CryptoPunks.
For sure. And so just so people have a little bit of context, like, Beanie and the other founders, these are really, they're anonymous Twitter NFT influencers. Would you say that that's a fair, and well, not just Twitter, but just social media in general, would you say that's a fair, like kind of high level understanding of just who they are in the space?
For Beanie, yes. G-Funk and Sports Cheetah are both doxable. So they are not Anon. G-Funk kind of runs the day-to-day operations of Pixel Vault. He does not get enough love for how much hustle and grind he puts in for this project. But yeah, so G-Funk Sean is largely the man behind Punks Comics. Beanie is sort of the influencer, the social media. He was the brains behind a lot of the tokenization and the mechanics, the DeFi kind of side of things. But yeah, it was sort of this great intersection that they had met around Euler Beats. I still don't know how to properly pronounce that one, but and they kind of spun up this this whole project off the back of that relationship that they made through that project. So to me, it was just a really fascinating conversation around, you know, like creating original intellectual property, you know, kind of inspired by the CryptoPunks and telling this narrative around NFT culture and the lost Robbies, you know, and just the fact that they had such a long-term vision for the project. It wasn't just an NFT. It wasn't just a singular project. It was intended to be a business.
Yeah, it's really cool. And what you said about the intellectual property, we can kind of touch on that a little bit later too. One thing I want to ask you about is the fractionalization, right? So for people that don't maybe have a handle on this, like CryptoPunks are very, very expensive at this point. If somebody wants to buy one, they have to be ready to cough up, you know, in USD terms, like between at least like $40, $45, $50,000, depending on, you know, where the kind of market is at any given time. So this gives people an opportunity to buy effectively like fractional shares of CryptoPunks, to have exposure to CryptoPunks, but being able to do it on a much smaller scale. It's not at the point yet where, you know, for example, if you just bought like a fraction of like Tesla stock on one of the trading apps, you can, that's not where we're at yet, but this does give people an opportunity to get punk exposure for less than the cost of a punk, for like a lot less. Can you talk a little bit about that, you know, what that means to you and where you could see that going?
Well, so to me, it was really interesting because, you know, if you look at the floor of CryptoPunks, you know, you're looking in the teens range of Ethereum, you know, like it's not an insignificant investment, I think, for anybody, right? But yep. The characters in the CryptoPunks involved in Punks comics are not floor punks. Most of them are not floor punks. Like even just Beanies alone, I think, had an offer of, you know, hundreds of Ethereum just itself. And so when you start talking about like the fractionalization of these types of like assets, just the Pixel Vault itself and the CryptoPunks, you know, that are going to be fractionalized, it's a massive, massive deal. And shout out Andy and Fractional Art. They're the partner that's helping with the fractionalization. I think that's going to be huge. That's going to be a massive market, is the fractionalization of some of these blue chip NFT projects and blue chip artists. They've got a gem on their hands.
Yeah, no question. You know, what you pointed out is very, very true. Like, you know, just the fact that Beanie's Punk is Beanie's Punk automatically gives it this insane amount of value. And for you to be able to have fractional exposure to that, I think people need to understand the power of what that means. So can you go a little bit into depth? I know it gets incredibly technical and there's layers to it, but can you go a little bit into depth on the mechanics of how to get that exposure? Like if someone buys a Punks comic NFT on OpenSea, what has to happen after that to get that exposure?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So there's a staking and burning mechanism behind the scenes. If you go to punkscomic.com, it's got a much more thorough breakdown and an FAQ that we spent, you know, well over a week developing just to try and iron everything out. But there's some like really cool infographics and stuff like that that can give you a little bit of a better breakdown visually. But essentially, the tokens are divested into two pools. If you stake your comic, you get 50% or exposure to a 50% pool of those Punks tokens divested over 24 months. 25% of those tokens go to the Pixel Vault, which is the reward for burning your edition, thus reducing the supply, increasing the value of those remaining. And then 25% of those tokens are being withheld to Pixel Vault LLC, which is their only asset withheld for the company. So basically, there's sort of a very rigid timeline of events that has to happen for everything to kind of work right. The staking and all, like the staking and burning, has to go in a very precise order, because the physical has to be claimed and can only be claimed if you stake your comic. You cannot redeem your physical edition of the comic if you decide to burn. So the burn window then had to be before the staking window and after the redemption window. And so it was like this whole, we had to kind of come up with this timeline. And right now it's basically just waiting for the fractionalization and fractional art and that partnership to launch so that we can kind of get the whole ball rolling. But it should be happening either sometime later this month, early next month in August, alongside the Meta Heroes project.
Okay, so obviously it's very involved for maybe people that aren't as deep into the NFT space as someone like you is, or someone like I am. So just so people understand, like burning would be sending the NFT to a null address and then taking it out of circulation, right? Like if you burn it, it's gone. It's not there anymore. It can never be created again, and thus that reduces the supply. And so, in theory, would increase the demand / increase the value of the remaining supply. And when you actually stake, like what is the benefit to Pixel Vault of a person staking their Punks comic? Like what does Pixel Vault, or what does the Punks comic organization get out of that?
So we've kind of seen it already in that out of all of the 10,000 editions, I think there's less than like 200 or 300 that are available for sale right now. And so in the staking, you're essentially removing it. It's a removal of liquidity. You're essentially taking it out of circulation in a sense, and forcing that anybody that has it still in circulation or that has it available for sale, for the value of those to go up. For those that are like holding a Punks comic #1, there's really no downside to not staking it if you plan on holding it, other than you'll have to unstake it in order to sell it. But the benefits far outweigh the costs there, in my opinion. Like if you plan on holding one and plan on selling it in the future, when that staking window opens, it's only in your favor to stake your comic for as long as you intend on holding it. So that you can, receive those Punks tokens. But yeah, without getting too deep in the weeds there, the team has done a phenomenal job of making it a very difficult decision as to whether you should stake or burn. I think the primary driver for why so many people are intending to burn more than they stake is off the back of the DAO token. Which is the token that it gives you fractional exposure to. Gives you fractional exposure to the DAO, which contains a bunch of one-of-one art from artists like Hackatow, Killer Acid, Robbie Trevino, as well as having the token itself designed by Fuckrender. And all of the assets contained within the vault, such as like the Crypto Voxels property itself, the Lost Robbie that is featured in the comic, and a bunch of stuff like that. So I think the fact that you can only get that DAO token by burning Punk's comic #1 is why so many people are gravitating towards that.
Yeah, and so that you're talking about a lot of like blue chip, if not close to blue chip artwork that is one of one, which has been determined to have the most value at this point in the fine art kind of sector of the NFT space. So people that are looking to get access to that would be incentivized to, to get those tokens. Is there a risk to Punk's comic owners to stake? Like, what risk do they run in staking versus just holding in, an OpenSea wallet or a cold storage device?
That you're not going to receive the Punks tokens. That's really the only downside, is that you wouldn't receive the reward or the benefit to the owning of the Punks comic #1. Like it's speculative. Like if you have more than one Punks comic and you are speculating that the value will go up and you intend on selling one in the future, there is no downside to staking it, other than the requirement that you would have to unstake it to then sell it. But like for the additional exposure to receiving an additional share of those Punks tokens, in my eyes, that is an incredible value add that you would want to take advantage of for as long as you intend on holding it.
Absolutely. Well, fascinating project, the Punks comic. When I saw the floor rising, I was like kind of blown away. Anytime you see these projects just start to exciting, and I can imagine for you being in, it must have been a pretty wild ride over the past few weeks here. So we'll continue to watch that. And, I appreciate your kind of breakdown on that one. There was another project that you had let me know you wanted to talk about here. I'm just pulling up our Twitter messages, but what project was that second one that we were going to talk about here? Is it the Twin Flames?
Oh yeah, Justin Aversano, his Twin Flames project, was recently featured in the Sotheby's auction. He was the community voted 28th lot of the Sotheby's digitally native, whichever one of those, NFT auction. And he's just a phenomenal human being as well as a great photographer. So it's been really interesting for me to, kind of get to know him a little better. I'm his Discord admin as well, and watching his process of he curates his community better than any other individual I've ever seen. It's actually pretty fascinating to me as like a community developer, a marketer. Like, he is a people collector. And I don't say that in a, any sort of derogatory sense. Like, he truly fosters and develops some of the strongest relationships I've yet seen in the NFT business. And that is entirely, the best kudos that I could give.
Yeah, as we scroll through, these photographs, he's obviously an incredible photographer. I love, like my partners, when they watch this video, they'll know how much this is connecting with me, because I'm a huge fan of Polaroid photography. I have a Polaroid and I do Polaroid photography myself. There's an artist named Dagpo Lobsang that I own several blown up Polaroid prints by. I think that Polaroid is one of the most slept on artistic mediums out there, especially like, obviously within photography. And I think people don't understand how hard it is to actually make photographs like this with a Polaroid and have them work the way they do. So this is so incredible. And what you're saying about him, like really curating the people, curating the subjects of his photography is apparent. It's very obvious to me as I look through these that that's how he operates. And this project is just very cool that, all of these people are twins, and he's found a way to kind of capture them all in very different ways and with different photographic styles too. So I really like it. And so this was auctioned by, you said Sotheby's?
One of the pieces was auctioned by Sotheby's, yes. So it was an edition of 100, one of ones for each of the 100, piece collection. And it's been sort of a really interesting journey, because when I first connected with Justin, the floor was somewhere around maybe 0.8 or 1 ETH. And shortly thereafter was the announcement of the Sotheby's auction. And I think the highest sale at this point is somewhere around like 11 ETH outside the Sotheby's auction. And so he's definitely seen some phenomenal interest and growth off the back of that. and I know he's got some more projects in the works and some more stuff going behind the scenes. I'm just really glad to have my small part in helping to support him. I'm a huge fan of his, and I think his photographs speak for themselves.
Absolutely. And, congratulations to him for those, high ETH sales. That's really awesome. And I love to see that. We saw a little bit of you referenced it before, like a kind of a bubble burst in March with the NFT space, the fine art NFT space on Nifty Gateway. So I always love to hear about artists doing really well in the space still. And obviously it's still happening left and right. It's just not as like front and center given the OpenSea collectibles kind of dynamite bull run that's happening right now. What are you seeing? Like, what's your opinion on the fine art side of NFTs, like right now, like where we're at with that right now, summer 2021, after March Nifty Gateway? Like, where do you think we're at?
I honestly think that they are so under attentioned right now. I think that we are going to see a huge push in NFT photography. There's a photographer named Kathy. I apologize. I'm going to look her last name up because I don't want to butcher it. But where is it? Is it Kat? She just sold one of her NFT photographs for 30 Ethereum. Here, Kath Samard. Had the pleasure of connecting with her actually in one of Dee's Twitter Spaces, which was an awesome experience. We ended up like going on a random sort of NFT photographer tangent. We brought Justin up on stage, and he just kind of brought up all of these photographer friends of his, and we went on like a 4-hour like NFT photographer like download, just like feed this, like pump this stuff into our brains. And Kath Samard had a NFT, which was a beautiful piece of artwork in itself. Her Twitter is CATHSIMARD_, if you want to look that one up. But it was an absolutely beautiful piece in and of itself. But what really got me was that it also included an experiential component, that whoever won that NFT auction could go with her on a sort of wilderness adventure and partake in this experience, which she would then take another photograph and mint for you. So you're getting this sort of guided journey going back to where she took the photograph, as well as, a minted, photograph from your experience. And I love that, like, not only is she doing phenomenal work as a photographer in the NFT space, but then she's also bringing in some of these layers of utility beyond it being just a photograph.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds incredible. I'm going to pull up her stuff right now. I feel like photography is a medium that needs to be at the forefront of NFTs, ASAP. And I don't think that we're seeing it at the level that people expect. So here we go. Let me just balance this out so we can take a look at Kath's work here. So yeah, I mean, so what is your connection to Kath? Just knowing that she's a brilliant artist and getting involved with her NFTs a little bit?
Yeah, so it was actually Justin that had connected us via that Twitter space. This Twitter space is going to go down like in history. It was literally just a D's chill hangout Twitter spaces. We had Justin Aversano in the room, brought him up on stage, and he just started shouting out photographers left and right. And so we just like brought photographer after photographer after photographer up on stage. That was the piece right there. But yeah, it kind of getting their insights on the NFT space, where they see, the direction of how they can really bring their artwork into this new sort of digital medium. And I really loved how she almost, gamified and brought this level of utility to the experiential side of it, that not only are you collecting this beautiful photograph, but that you also then get to have the opportunity to go on this journey with her. And it was kind of funny because it was teased about, like, when that sale went through for 30 Ethereum, like that is a lot of money, especially for a photograph. But when you factor in that experiential component, like a week of a guided sort of experience with this incredible photographer, I mean, people pay that for like vacations and stuff like that. It's really not so far fetched when you think about it in that lens.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And you know, that experiential component is what makes the NFT space so special. And, you know, obviously this is something that Gary Vee, like we were talking about before, you know, whether he pioneered it or not, he definitely pushed it to the forefront of everybody's attention. And now people are, you know, seeking artists, creators, they're seeking more ways to actually, you know, apply that kind of technique to the work that they're releasing. So it sounds like she's doing it in a wonderful way. So yeah, man, you know, I really appreciate you coming on today. I think your insights were super, super valuable. I'm excited to continue to follow some of these artists that you talked about, and you know, Punks Comics. So everybody can find CJ here at VJFreak XBL on Twitter. Where else can they find you, CJ?
So VGFREAK on Twitter and Instagram, Videogamefreak #8888 on Discord. And I was gonna say you'll probably catch me in and around a lot of Twitter Spaces. So Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse rooms, I'm lurking just about everywhere these days. So
watch your back, he's lurking.
I appreciate
thanks so
you,
much
man.
for coming, bud.
Yeah.
Likewise.